Hello everyone. I figured a good topic for today would be energy vampirism. This is a parasitic relationship in which one person feeds off of the life force energy, otherwise known as prana, of another person. These people who feed off of the life force of another person, who drain other people's energy, are often called psychic vampires. But I'm going to propose a lofty proposition today. That it is impossible to give away your energy to anyone, and it is impossible to take energy from anyone. Here's why. Let's call this source. As we know, source is an infinite energy. It has no boundaries. It is everythingness. There are streams within this source energy, which we often call the soul or the higher self. It's just like a current within the ocean. The current is also the ocean, but it is an expression of the ocean. So these souls, or higher selves, project forth into the physical dimension of physical being. So let's call this you, and let's call this Bob. Bob is only ever being fed energy from his soul, or higher self. The same way that you are only being fed by your soul or higher self. It is that stream of consciousness which is feeding you energy. So it is actually impossible to take your energy from somebody else, or for someone to take your energy for themselves. All that ever happens is that this person acts in such a way that by virtue of perceiving them, you begin to think thoughts that cause you to restrict your own source flow. Same goes for the other person. Bob might feel like we are draining their energy, but what's really happening is that as he is, here's his little eyes, as he is observing our behavior, that is causing him to think thoughts that are preventing his source flow from coming into his physical body. That right there is why he is saying, now I feel like my energy is drained when I'm around you. It really has nothing to do with this person over here. They're not the one that's doing it to them. They're just existing as an excuse for Bob to feel bad. This may happen to you too. If Bob is doing something that makes us feel like our energy is drained, if this is the psychic vampire, the only reason we have that perception is because they're doing things that are causing us, when we look at him, there it is, little eyes, our eyes, when we are looking at this person, we are thinking thoughts about them that is making it so that we're in resistance to our source flow. That energy current cannot flow into our physical body. And when that happens, you see ailments. All of these physical symptoms of unhealth are the byproduct of us depriving our own source current. Like starving people stealing food, they steal energy. As we saw in the previous example, it's not truly that they steal energy. It's that they behave in a way that causes you to think thoughts that deprive you of your own source energy. This does not make them evil or even ill-intentioned. It makes them desperate victims to their own minds. But at the risk of making some of you very unhappy, I must tell you something about the victims of vampirism. We live in a reality, a physical reality, which is a mirror hologram. The way it is arranged is according to the law of attraction, which states that only vibrations which match can share the same reality. So how is it that the prey and the predator can share the same space? They're opposing vibrations, are they not? Not exactly. Not at all. They are the same vibration. The victim is the exact same as the vampire. He or she also thinks thoughts that diminish their own vitality, and so they live in a state of weakness and desperation. They are unaware of the wellspring of their own spirit, and so they too are considered spiritually weak, or at the very least in a period of emotional and spiritual weakness. Like starving people stealing food, they steal two things. The first is pity. Pity feels like love to those of us who are perpetual victims. It urges people to take care of us because we do not feel capable of taking care of ourselves. But there is one more thing that the victims of psychic vampirism steal from a space of desperation. It is a feeling of goodness. When we line up with a bad guy, like a psychic vampire, we get to be the good guy. We do not feel capable of feeling good about ourselves unless we can feel as if someone else is more of a bad person than we are. This is what gets us addicted to psychic vampires. We keep running into them over and over because they serve our self-concept. If you come into contact with a psychic vampire, you will start to feel exhausted. You'll start to feel confused, like you're very out of sorts. You might even start to feel depressed. Your energy is going to be depleted, and you won't even know it hits you. Just like the old fairy tales of the blood-sucking vampires. Most of the time they strike, and you don't even know what to ascribe your feelings to, because you haven't identified who it is in your environment that's causing you to feel this way. Here's the problem. Traditionally, we've thought that the best way to protect ourselves against psychic vampires is to protect ourselves. But I'm here to tell you today that if you want to protect yourself, you're doing the exact opposite. Because the minute you come up with the idea that you need protection from something, you create that thing that you need to be protected from. In other words, we believe ourselves to be a victim the second that we feel like we need to be protected. No protection technique is going to save you from an energy vampire. So you might ask, why is it then, when some people visualize surrounding themselves in a bubble of white light, why does that actually work sometimes? It's not because the person is thinking about protecting themselves. It's because visualizing that white bubble causes them to feel some sense of empowerment and thus release resistance to the idea that a psychic vampire can share the space with them. In reality, this white bubble of light, which we're erecting around ourselves mentally, is not causing us to have a buffer to that person at all. It's causing us to raise our frequency to a degree where we cannot be utilized by the psychic vampire. But there are some better ways to go about doing this. So how do we eradicate a psychic vampire from our lives? You deprive them of their source of energy. They feed off of your weakness. So if your weakness no longer exists, they can no longer feed off of you. So now I'm going to give you some tips that will help you to become a vibrational match to what you want to be a match to instead of to the psychic vampire. And believe it or not, it's the very same remedy, both for the psychic predator and for the victim. Realize this principle within the universe. It is not possible for them to take energy from you. It is not possible for you to take energy from them. All that is possible is to behave in a way that influences someone to think thoughts that prevent the source energy from their higher consciousness from flowing through their physical body. It's like you're doing something that's causing somebody to put their finger over the hose water so it can't flow through the hose. 1. Develop authenticity. You've got to allow yourself to find yourself. And the truth of who you are is that you are who you want to be. The more you behave like that person, the more you will be exactly who you are. Authenticity is extremely important when we're dealing with psychic vampires, because they feed off of our insecurity of self. Develop autonomy. In other words, a way to fulfill your own needs in healthy ways, or develop a kind of relationship with other people that is symbiotic instead of parasitic. Codependent relationships are the meat of psychic vampirism. And the only way to prevent ourselves from that kind of relationship is to become strong in and of ourselves, to know that we are capable. Learn how to nurture yourself, how to love yourself, how to fill up your own cup. For both the vampire and the victim, this is not something you are very good at. But the more you practice the art of doing what it takes to love yourself, the less you're going to need other people to fill up your cup for you. Commit to your life and commit to your physical body. This may seem trivial, but just because you are here in your physical life does not mean you have committed to your life. It's only when we really commit to our life and commit to ourselves that we're capable of making the changes necessary, that we're no longer a match to either side of vampirism. Develop self-trust. You really can trust yourself. Your internal guidance system can never be corrupted by another person or another thing. And if you distrust someone else, all that is you distrusting yourself, because it means that you think you are not capable of discerning what is right for you, discerning someone who is good for you from someone who is bad for you. It also means that you don't think that you can do what it takes to make yourself feel good. For the psychic vampire, this is especially true. As victims, it is true as well. We do not feel as if we can do what it takes to keep ourselves safe or to keep ourselves happy. But the vampire sucks from others, does things to influence others so that they can feel good, because you don't feel capable of making yourself feel good on your own. Learn how to see and accept nuances, complexities, and gray areas. For those of us that are stuck in the role of vampire and victim, we have a very hard time seeing the world as it really is. We see it in terms of black and white, a world of villains and heroes, villains and victims. Seeing the world in this way makes us feel as if we live in a dangerous world. It perpetuates a worldview which does not serve us very well, and it means that we will choose to polarize ourselves on one side or the other, instead of grasp that we are both. Study the behaviors that you want to receive from others. Do you want to be caressed? Do you want to be listened to? If you see any behavior that you wish to receive, start doing that to others. That will make you a vibrational match to receiving those behaviors. Anything that you can think and anything that you can do that will put you in a space of feeling empowered will make it so that you are a vibrational match which is outside the range of that which a psychic vampire can access. So here's the moment of truth. The less fearful thoughts you think, the less fearful you will feel, and thus the vibration you hold will be too high to be engaged on either side of a relationship that mirrors vampirism. And it is true, if we're being honest with ourselves, that all of us have a little bit of psychic vampire within us. Have a good week.